Hey, thanks for checking out the Dad Complex. My name is Jonathan Silva, and today I have my good friend Jonathan Seaborn on. He works at Texas Tech Public Media. He's a filmmaker, incredible musician, and a dad. So thanks for checking it out. Jonathan, welcome to the Dad Complex. I'm excited to have you on. We've been friends for at least 12 years now, and I've always looked up to you it's funny throughout the different transitions of our lives that we've kind of made in parallel. We've kind of had those same things. You're a very, very talented musician, great singer.
Well, I don't know about that.
Back then, I always thought that you were a really good front man. You're also very handsome.
Yeah, we have that in common. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think we became dad. Well, I think we both kind of connected as we were both dads at the same time.
Yeah. And my daughter falls right in the middle between your two girls.
Yes.
I think that Penny's about a year older and a year younger.
Yes. Yeah. Darren's a year younger. Yeah. And so I'm really excited to have you on. You work for TTU Public Media, and you've been there for quite a while.
Yeah, about 8.5 years now.
8.5 years. And so is that has that been your career, or was there something before TTU Public Media?
Yeah, that has been the majority of my professional career. So I did, like you, a bunch of freelance work and stuff beforehand, odd job, like a wedding here. For a little while, I was contracted through Suddenlink, which is 2 or 3 cable providers that go, now they're whatever they are now.
Yeah.
But to do commercials, and that was awful.
Yeah.
Working at an ad agency, I'm sure you thought this. In fact, we may have mentioned it when we had lunch a couple of days ago. Watching commercials growing up, you'd often see something and be like, this is awful, that no one knows what they're doing. And then you get in to do it, and then you realize the restrictions that are put on you from, when I was doing it for Suddenlink, it was $300 a commercial. And so it's oh man, I have no time, I have no resources, I have no budget. And production was an add-on. It wasn't something like what you guys are doing, where you're offering a service and there's creative and there's data and intention behind what you're doing. It's like a cable company sending a 23-year-old kid out there. Anyways, it wasn't a fun experience, but it was because of the way that it existed and it was executed.
Yeah, well, and really even now there's still a lot of business decisions that get made, right? Where it's is it valuable to spend X amount more money for something that we're going to use for the next quarter?
Yeah.
And is the product going to make that return, right? And that's actually what we get into a lot of conversations now, where we would love to be able to go and do a full-on set and production and hire actors and hire a really talented voice actor, and it's just not realistic all the time. And honestly, very rarely is it the case.
Well, yeah, we're expected, I have friends' parents who worked in this industry, and those conversations about what they were expected to be able, they were working with a lot bigger budgets and a lot higher end gear, but it was this was just the cinematographer, or this was just the editor, or you were just the creative.
Right.
And so I also teach adjunct over at Media and Com, and I tell my students all the time, nowadays you have to be a jack of all trades. You're expected to do so much more with so much less.
Right.
So anyways, it's just interesting, where can you stretch that $1 or $2 to get those things, and how creative can you be within the restrictions of a budget to do stuff. We have those same issues, but not from a marketing standpoint. Just, public media is not commercial media. We don't have the budgets, the financing, the backing that, a commercial station might for stuff. So there's a lot of the same conversations around just, it's just a different fishbowl, but same problems.
Yeah. And so something that's really cool, and first of all, before we continue and before I forget, I want to point out the Cat series.
Okay.
I freaking loved that series.
Yeah.
And And so if you're not familiar with the cat series, obviously I'll link it so you can go watch it. Is it still on YouTube?
Yeah, it's still on YouTube. Yeah, you have to search the Cat web series. What's easiest is if you search the Cat web series, all one word.
Yeah.
When we created this, probably back in, I think it was 2011 is when it started. The internet was a little bit of a different place, and we didn't have the foresight to realize that cats would dominate the internet. And so naming something the cat would destroy your search engine optimization
That's
because
funny.
everything is a cat. So it's hard to find because of that, because there's a billion cats online.
I would have thought that would have helped you because it was so freaking funny. Like it was good content.
Yeah. I think it may have in the beginning, but then, like I said, there was just so much cat content that it just like drowned.
Yeah.
We got drowned out, and we never quite caught, like it didn't, and it's so much with internet content. Like if you don't strike immediately, it fizzles out. And we never found our audience. I think that it was potentially, I don't want to this sounds pretentious or whatever. I think it was a little bit ahead of its time in the sense of like,
oh, absolutely,
what web series and internet content has become. But yeah, we never hit our stride.
No, that was really cool. And Kate and I talk about this a lot with Drew, and how we used to shoot video back then, even and music videos. And so I know I was working with Austin Light, and we did the At the Top of Your Lungs thing, and that was that was like music video, pretty much like live music video. Also ahead of its time, like before. Maybe not realist, like not really before, but before Tiny Desk kind of hit off, and before all these other things, we were doing this. We were recording bands live, recording audio and video live, and that was super fun. But it's funny to think now, like in the world of gimbals and sliders, and like any kind of video production agency is going to have all these different tools. But back then, it was all handheld. Someone's literally sitting on a dolly, and the other person's pushing them. Very DIY-esque, but fun.
And y'all were lucky when that was going on to have someone like Patrick, or some of the people that ran within that group of guys that had access to equipment to be able to do things at the level that they were able to do them.
Absolutely.
A lot of those early sessions, and still stuff that's being done now, it's like we're going to set a Zoom in the middle of the room and hope that it sounds okay, or like there might be a couple of boom mics in the room, but like that was it was a full-fledged. Yeah. I mean, once again, you had people that had access to equipment, so you got to do it on the cheap. But I mean, realistically, those were high-dollar productions.
Yes.
If you were to go out and actually expense all of that.
Yeah, I know that like Patsy's audio rig, or for Patrick's audio rig, I think even today, like to be able to borrow that, or like to buy that would be a stupid amount of money.
Oh yeah. I mean, and just like the mics alone, like it's not like y'all were just using Radio Shack mics or something. Like these I'm sure the vocal mics were 58s, but I'm sure those, like, he had really nice and high dollar guitar microphones and drum mics and everything else. So
yeah. And so talking about music, that's how we met.
Yeah.
Started with Elephant Armor. You're the front man there. And then what's funny is I'm a huge fanboy of the band that you were in next, but it's leaving my mind, and all I can think is John and Race and
Ivory and Ash. Yeah.
Ivory and Ash. God, so good. That first EP was just like, for me, monumental. And then y'all shifted your sound and was still, just incredible.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun. So it, some of the, like, when I think about we all do this, but like, the good old days or whatever, like those early days of Ivory and Ash are kind of where I go to. So I had known Race for forever as well. He grew up in Cisco, which is in between Abilene and DFW, and I grew up in Abilene, and we had run in the same circles and had known each other through bands through like high school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then Elephant Armor was going pretty strong, and we had invited Ivory and Ash had existed for a few months before Chris or I joined. And so we invited Elephant Armor Ivory and Ash on tour with Elephant Armor. And then the bass player quit. Race had wanted to add a guitar. Race and I started talking. We brought Chris on, who was the bass player for Elephant Armor. And then just kind of naturally, Elephant Armor, it's weird. We never broke up.
Yeah.
Like it just kind of stopped. Like it just slowly fizzled out.
And professional careers or school or whatever, I'm sure had something to do with that at that time
all
too.
sorts of stuff. David, the original guitar player, had a professional career kind of got in the way, and he had to leave for that. Mike had joined, and then Mike's amazing. But I think towards the end, Mike had I always thought of it as Mike's band. I don't know if Mike ever thought of it as his band.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of lost interest towards the end. So there was like some focus issues towards the end. And we had some members that were like super committed and wanted to like give it a shot. And I don't think that it was like 50-50. Like half the band was like, let's try to make this a real thing. And the other was like, this is fun, but that's what I want it to be, is fun.
Well, and I think something cool to point out right now in the Lubbock community is that there are a lot of bands that are actually making a decent amount of money, whereas back then in the early 2010s, like bars weren't necessarily paying money. Like you were begging, we were begging bars to put on a show.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think musicians they're still not making enough money for the amount of work that goes into it, but definitely it's a lifestyle for sure, more so than a hobby.
Yeah. There's a lot of good, like I wish we had some of there were great bands then. Lubbock had these waves of stuff. When I first moved here, was kind of at the peak of like Thrift Store and then One Wolf and then Markham went solo, or well, there's a lot of the same guys, but One Wolf just turned into Daniel Markham, and they're La Panza, which is now like those two guys went on to do Rattlesnake Milk, which is
right,
maybe one of the best things to come out of this area. That stuff is insane, but that stuff was going strong, and then it kind of went like, then there was Archimedes and the guys that we met through.
Yep.
And then it kind of felt barren for a while, and now there's like, Tigers and Bleach Kings and like there's all sorts of stuff now. Yeah. But it doesn't feel like we have the same infrastructure that we had back then. There is potentially more financial support and some more community support. I see like the city and Luca and stuff like that being more welcoming to that sort of stuff. But it doesn't seem like we have the same options as far as places to play that we had back then. And
definitely
maybe it's just
less motivated people to do it.
Yeah.
I know that. Like, I mean, I know we brought in a band. I've only ever lost money and made money twice putting on shows. One, we brought in phenomenal band, the Swellers.
Yeah.
They were so awesome, and we thought for sure we're gonna at least break even. We never, at that point, we were never putting on shows or like doing music to make money. At least I wasn't. That wasn't the case. It was just fun, hanging out with our friends. But I mean, I lost like $600 that night, and I did not have $600. I started calling everybody. I was like, dude, I need a loan. I need a favor. Like, I was scratching together money to get them money before they had to head back on the road. That was horrible. But then we had Let Live at Prairie Fire Theater, which was probably one of my favorites venues, next to Wise Monkey, which was under it's one guy's now, but Giorgio's.
Oh yeah.
And that place was really cool too. But Prairie Fire, we had Let Live here, and that was probably the only time I ever made like a couple $100.
Yeah.
And it was sick. I remember we made money, and my best friend Jesus was touring with them, and I literally just gave him, not that he asked me to or anything. I was like, oh, I made money, here you go. Like, I just handed him money. I knew he was on tour and broke, but it was cool,
That was a crazy show. That was the right time. Like, there's these like moments in time, and that was the right time for that band in this area. Like they were at the peak of what they were. It was, and Prairie Fire was, which now it's a coffee shop, and but that place was it was a fun.
Yeah, it was
cool. It was a fun venue.
It was cool. I think it was one of the only places where it wasn't like you were stressed about something getting broken because there was nothing in there.
Yeah, there's nothing to break.
Yeah, there's nothing to break. So it was cool. But anyways, so moving on through that kind of like lifestyle and how we met, it's kind of funny how quickly we became parents after being pretty, I would say, erratic.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know, at least for me personally, you were a little bit older than me in age, but you grow. I know I had to grow up really, really quick.
Yes.
I did not plan to have a child at 21. I did.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and we had, so I was 29 when we got pregnant, 30 when we had Isla.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's, but I had lived my 20s as if I was going to try to be in a band, and hadn't thought about what sort of structure I needed to raise a kid and other things. And
Right.
so there was a transition there, and I still played music, for the first like 4 years of Isla's life or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But not with the goal of that being my career. You know what I mean? Like,
When did that switch? What was that like internally when it was like, okay, I'm not going to do music anymore?
So it was right before the pandemic, I guess. I had started having some success with the films, like some of the docs had started doing well, and I was going to festivals a bunch, and I was progressing at work, and I was finding a lot of the same fulfillment in that work that I was through music, but it was paying the bills and
Right. It's like, I can do something I love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it got to a point where it wasn't, Race and I had, and at that time, Race was wanting to really try to make a go for it. And it was like, well, man, there was this mutual thing of like, I don't think it's fair for me to expect you guys to take this less seriously because I'm not as available as I used to be, versus it's not fair for y'all to ask me to put my career progression on hold to see if this works out or whatever.
Right.
And so then they switched to, they didn't feel like going on with Ivory and Ash without me. So that's when they switched to We Can't Help You. And so Ivory and Ash progressively got a little heavier, a little darker. And then We Can't Help You was like even heavier and darker than that. And we ended up not playing anything, but last year before Race moved, the four of us got back together and we practiced for like 2 or 3 months, wrote a couple of songs, and had like talked about doing it more as let's do Ivory and Ash again, but like for fun.
Yeah.
And I was really digging the way it was going. But then Race and his family had decided to move. Race had a career opportunity, and it took them closer to both of their families out in like Weatherford in the Cisco area.
Yeah.
And so they took that, and so Race is now out in that area. But we almost, got back together at some point. That's funny. But yeah, it was just that decision or that moment of like, hey, I can do something that, like I said, is just as fulfilling as this. And actually, make a career out of it. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, I'm married and I have a kid, and I have to think about, and I have a mortgage and a car payment and whatever else. So like, something that makes sense. And like I said, it wasn't fair to Lindsay, my wife, to be like, hey, I'm going to travel for the band, but then I'm also going to travel just as much to go to film festivals and, so I'm going to be gone twice as much now because of this. So I had to think about that too. And there was some of that. Not that she asked me to do anything, but like understanding that like, hey, we have a kid, we have these things. Like, it isn't cool of me to keep doubling the amount of time I'm away.
Yeah. What's interesting too is that how different our lives and our generation is compared to our parents, where both spouses are actively pursuing careers and really good at it. I mean, I know that Lindsay's had a lot of success and had success before she moved into agency work as well. She was well on her way up, or on her at the top of her
she was
profession pretty much, right?
Yeah, she was the general manager and a buyer for like they had a couple of locations, one here and one in Fort Worth and stuff like that, but a boutique, and so was doing buying and merchandising and managing that stuff before she got into. She works at an agency now, in marketing. But yeah, and she's still, like there is that balance of a little bit of a give and take of like, okay, well, I want to achieve this, so I'll bear, or you'll bear a little more for a little bit, and then we take turns with that, or try to as much as possible.
Right.
It's difficult, and you're right, it is different than, or at least our parents. I'm sure that there were parents, from that time period, but it's probably more common now, and I don't know. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of different root causes of that, but it is difficult though, and it is a balancing act, and there's some things that feel, like I wish that Isla didn't have to go to like after school care every day or whatever, and that's not that I wish Lindsay worked less. It'd be awesome if I had to work.
I know, that's funny.
But it also, like, at the end of the day, like Isla's, it's like an hour and a half a day or whatever. It's not like we never see her, but
right.
There are little things like that it's like, oh, I wish that we were able to do this or this, but at the same time, we're able to do a lot of stuff that if we weren't both pursuing something, we wouldn't be. Like, we couldn't afford some of the vacations we want to go on, or provide certain opportunities that we've been able to provide for her, or have the plan for her future the way we've been able to plan for it if we weren't in those situations. So, there's give and take everywhere.
Yeah. We just went on our first family vacation, and I may have said this in another episode, but we just went on our first family vacation out of, we went to Cancun, and it was awesome. Like, all inclusive resort. And, I never did that. My wife, never done that. For sure not with our families, that they couldn't afford that. So like being able to offer that to our kids now is really, really special on a different level. And I know it's even special for my parents. As we started the Tadpole Agency and as we've seen success and, being able to talk to them about it, I know that they're, all of their sacrifices that they made, it becomes worth it.
Yeah, they're proud. It seems like it's paid off.
Exactly. It's like, okay, we did all this stuff. We didn't do everything we wanted to do, but look at where everybody's at now. And my brothers are doing super well now too, which is exciting. So what was it like as your film careers were taking off? You started doing more documentaries, entering into festivals. What has that been like creatively as Isla gets older?
Yeah, it's so I've tried to tell her, or try to talk to her about what I do, and she has an understanding of it. And we're a PBS and NPR affiliate, and I'll constantly be like, hey, let's watch PBS together, and I'll put on like Alma's Way or something like that. And she's like, so you do this? And I'm like, well, no, I don't make any cartoons. And she's like, oh, well, I don't care then. But it is fun. Like every so often she'll watch an episode of Sound on Tap with me or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then she gets excited about like, you did like, oh, and then like, you'll see me in the background for a couple of frames or something. And she like gets excited and she's like, oh, I saw you were on TV, my dad makes TV or, and so it's been exciting to share with her what I do and try to explain to her about that. Creatively, it's weird. The past couple of years, I've moved more into an administrative role. So I'm not involved in some of the execution of some of those creative decisions or strategies. So it's kind of naturally shifted as she's aged, where I'm just not physically the one doing some of that stuff anymore. So I don't have like a super direct answer for that, but it has been fun to share with her the process. And I'm excited when she gets older to show her some of the like more dense stuff that we've worked on. And I hope to be, to find projects that I am able to be a little more involved in. But yeah, I don't know. Part of it too, and I'm sure you deal with this too, is just exhaustion. I'm tired all the time now.
Yes.
So, I think that's what's been the biggest challenge as far as finding the energy to be as creative as maybe I want to be or feel like I should be. And then there's a weird pressure to feel like you need, like, I don't know how you measure creativity, but like, I don't feel like I'm being as creative or as productive or whatever as I need to be. And there isn't an external factor forcing that pressure. It's all internal. And I don't know if that's a generational thing.
Dude, I think it is. I think it's definitely like a millennial thing. And I do that all the time too. And we talk about it all the time, where it's at what point are we getting complacent in any specific point in our life? Yeah. And I think it's not necessarily like keeping up with the Joneses or wanting to be, I mean, it is kind of wanting to be, the competitive side of me is want to be better than everybody else. But it's just the natural, like, I want to be really good. I want to make sure that nothing plateaus, whether that's in the business side of it, whether that's the process side of it, or the creative side of it.
Well, there's also the imposter syndrome.
Oh, like,
that's this constant fear that somehow I'm a fraud and I've fooled even myself to get to here. And those thoughts don't creep in. I say constant. It's not constant, but that stuff happens. I have that. I've talked to some friends about this, that once again, we're all in the same generation. Everybody, I think, kind of feels, I think it is kind of a millennial thing that, not that it's exclusive to it, but I think it's prominent within our generation, the imposter syndrome. But that dream of like, and I get this at super stressful times of the year, I'll be dreaming and I get a phone call and it's my high school and they're like, hey, it turns out you didn't finish Algebra 2 or something like that. And they're like, you as a man in your late 30s have to come back and take a high school class. Yeah. And like, I know that, like, I've read about that, like, that is a dream that, it's like you're having stress about imposter syndrome. And so you have this dream where something from your past isn't legitimate and you have to go correct it.
Yeah. Well, something that I wonder if, like, this plays into imposter syndrome, but I wonder if technology plays into imposter syndrome, because we work more efficiently now than previous generations did.
We're working more efficiently, but we're also never off, or at least I'm not. Like, I have access to work 24 hours a day. I can remote into stuff. I can do things from my phone, from my home computer, like whatever. The line of work life, that work life balance is super fuzzy. Yeah. So that probably plays into it. Like you said, the ability to be more efficient probably plays into it. And then I think that, I think that some of the projection from previous generations, like there's this idea of older generations of like the lazy millennial and the entitled millennial, the like everybody gets a trophy, everybody whatever, that like it's built into, or it's been wired into our DNA or whatever to disprove that, but then also that we're we're not worthy because of that. Like, I don't know how that's played into the psychology of millennials, but I bet there's some sort of connection there.
Oh yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree in that. Not to switch too much, but I did want to know more about so we were mentioning earlier about the work-life balance. So how do y'all handle it? How do you and Lindsay and Isla handle your workloads and being involved parents and all of that?
Yeah, so I mean, we try to make sure that so Sundays are like our Sundays. We go out to lunch together. We try to do some sort of activity together every Sunday, like as a full family unit, because there's at least one night a week. Like last night, I had my class, so I don't get home till after 9. So Lindsay was a single parent all day yesterday. Mm-hmm. Lindsay has stuff today, so she won't get home till after 9 or 10. So I will pick Isla up and we'll be a single parent all day today. And so there's always at least 2 days a week where that's or one day each a week that's happening to the other parent. So we try to make sure that every Sunday we, as much as possible, unplug, no emails, no whatever. It's not always possible, but as much as we can, and just focus on like making sure that the attention's on being a family together. We do that as much as we can throughout the week, but as you know, working full time and with kids that are in school and stuff like that, Monday through Friday, it is a sprint from the moment you get home of like, okay, we need to do dinner, we need to do bath time, we need to do homework, we need to practice, reading and spelling words and whatever else. And,
yes.
And then it's just, it doesn't ever feel like there's time to be as present as I would like to be on the weekdays when that stuff's going on. So Saturdays we do, we're all there together, but Saturdays there's always like a birthday party, or when she was in gymnastics or ballet, or like there's all that stuff. But then, like I said, Sunday we try to be, hey, let's go out to eat. Let's go, you want to go to the park, or you want to go shopping, or you want to do whatever. But yeah.
What's it been like seeing her grow? Did you have sisters, by the way? You do have sisters?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's it like? Is it very different being in your house as the only man?
No, I don't feel like, no. And so I have an older sister, but I didn't grow up with her, like an older half sister. Mm-hmm. And then I have a younger sister that I did grow up with, that was in the house the whole time with me. And so much of my childhood was kind of just like me, my mom, and my sister for different periods of time. Yeah. So maybe that's why, but like it doesn't feel any different. Like it was a bigger change for me moving in with Lindsay, like, getting like from having roommates in my 20s than it was when we had a kid. Like, the house is cleaned more often, and like just. And a lot of that had to do with like, I was living with other 23-year-old men or whatever. So like, no matter how much, you might clean your room, roommate X is
a total slob.
Yeah. So that was probably the bigger change is moving from that sort of environment after a couple of years to a more, the monogamous kind of.
Right. Yeah. It was super interesting to me. And what I always like mention about that time moving in with Kate and then having Penny was still figuring out like how to live with a woman. Cause I only have, 2 brothers, older brother, younger brother. So still trying to figure out how to live with Kate and like what that was like. And then transitioning into like, oh, now you're having a kid and it's a girl, and what is that like? And I was so freaked out, and now I love it. I honestly, I'm sure you get this question a lot. I hate getting asked like, when are you having another one? Yeah. Are you going to try for a boy? Like, when's the boy coming? And it's probably my least favorite question.
Yeah. Which is are you going to try for a boy is an interesting question, because it's like, how do you like, what am I supposed to do differently?
Right.
to,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what scares me about that question is I have a cousin who really wanted, so their first 2 or 3 were boys, and they really wanted a girl. So they kept trying until they had a girl, and they have 7 kids. Like they finally
kept going.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I'm glad that every family's different. Everybody, this is not a value statement. Everybody
Yeah.
wants what's right for their family. We are Isla will be an only child. Like we're a one child family. We're really happy with the structure and the unit we have. And I'm glad that I don't have it in my DNA to be like, well, I've got to have a boy and I've got to whatever. Like, because what if it was like a child 8?
I know. That's
had
insane to me. Honestly, after having both girls, I couldn't have, like, I would be depressed, I think, if I had a boy at this point.
Yeah.
For the same reason, like, we have this unit, we have this, like, I know what to expect. I have this specific type of love and, like, feelings and personalities and all these things that work in our house that would be thrown off at this point.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, and you figure stuff out, like, you have a kid and all the things that you were worried about like, okay, well, what does it mean for X, Y, and Z? You just figure those things out. But so I have nephews and I have friends that have little boys and friends of friends that have little boys, and seeing them versus oh my God, it just looks exhausting.
Yeah. For real.
The constant, like, get off of that. Like, don't knock that over. Why are you picking that up? Don't, and maybe it's just Isla's personality. It's probably not, I don't want to assign too much just to the gender. Like, Isla's a very, like, she's a pretty quiet kid. I mean, she's goofy and fun and stuff like that, but, like, she's never been one to, like, climb stuff or, like, she's not a loud kid. She's not, I don't know. So, like, we lucked out with her personality. But yeah, like I said, I don't want to assign it too much to gender, but it just so happens that, like, all the younger boys that we have experience with, they're all awesome kids, but, like, the unintentional destructive streak within them is crazy.
Well, my kids are definitely destroyers of things. So I don't necessarily relate to you there, but I could understand that. I see that for sure. Like, just boys literally fighting each other, whereas our kids don't. Like, they don't necessarily hit each other, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, I assume. What has it been like to your creative style being a parent? And maybe if it has changed, it would be really good to know if you could kind of explain what your creative style was before to now, if it's changed.
Yeah, so I would say the only thing is, which some of this, I don't know how much of this I want to attribute to being a parent or just spending enough time in the field that I'm in, but I'm much more concerned with whatever content I'm making having some sort of impact, like whether that be, social change or educational impact or, informative in some fashion, versus a period of time where maybe I was creating to create, or there were points in my life where I wanted to be provocative just to be provocative or whatever,
right.
Like in my punk rock streak or whatever, like I'm gonna, throw a finger to the man for no reason or whatever. I would say that there's probably some of that DNA that's still in me, though, in the sense that I like content that questions authority, or calls out injustice and things like that. Like, it's with intent. It's not as chaotic as maybe some of it was in my late teens, early 20s, but it's definitely it's more refined and it's more like I said, intentional, and there is a leaning more towards wanting to make things a better place, where potentially, especially in like my late teen, like 18, 19, it may have been a little more like pessimistic view on the world, a little more nihilistic in the like nothing matter, like
Right.
this place is nothing matters, so why try or whatever. Never like destructive, but a like nothing's going to change or whatever. Where now there's hope that because I want a better future for my kid, I hope that there is opportunity for change.
Yeah, there's like a bigger desire that there has to be change.
Yeah.
I think that there's more of like this, for me at least, there was a black and white outlook on life before kids. And then now that I have my kids, it's been like everything I do has a purpose, has something. And even if it's not direct at the end of the day, it's to give them more or to provide them more opportunity.
Yeah. It's whether that's right now, in the future, or indirect in the sense of like, I want to, like I said, create something that hopefully spurs positive change, so that it may not be in the form of like the stuff that we've talked about, where it's like, oh, I've got a college fund or whatever else, or a vacation or whatever. But it's like I've helped add to the conversation that maybe created more opportunity, or removed barriers or whatever.
And on that same note, I really love this age or this day and age in I don't want to say all media, but in a lot of media and marketing strategies and things like that, where or at least for sure personally, I feel like a lot of people feel this responsibility to create content that is impactful and thoughtful, and not necessarily for example, some of my favorite ads, and we have some magazines over here, like old Time magazines and stuff, like the old school like cigarette ads are probably my favorite ads ever. Like just very clean, very beautiful, very in your face, like the copy, the headlines, they're freaking perfect, but also a total lie.
Yeah.
It's like, don't quit, keep going, or Lucky Strike, not for quitters,
Yeah.
Like it's so on the nose and great, but also very irresponsible.
Yeah.
And I think now we take that in, for better or for worse, there's a lot more responsibility in what we're releasing and thoughtfulness. And especially in a world of like comment sections where I'm constantly thinking, whenever I write things, of objections. Okay, if I write this though, someone might say that, so I need to be more thoughtful or swap this around or answer that objection within my article or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, and I think it's just that the consumers, or yes, there's a channel for them to do this on now with social media comment sections, whatever. But like consumers are more willing to call out products, companies, whatever. And there's this understanding that the world doesn't all look and think and act the same. So, there's been that massive push for DEI initiatives and everything, across everything, and which is fantastic. And I hope that we've talked some about this internally. I know that like across public media, it's a constant effort and push within like the way that they do interviews and everything else now. But I think we need to be careful that it's not solely a box to check, like that it's not just like, well, we've made a DEI statement, so now we're in the clear, and there's no follow up, there's no follow through. Anyway, what I'm getting at is like, I hope that this trend that you're speaking of sticks around, and then I hope that there are ways to help hold companies and agencies and content initiatives, whatever else, accountable for the things that we say that we're going to do to try to improve those situations. That's a long way of saying I hope it's not just a fad.
Yeah.
Like I hope that it actually does, you know, you said this the other day, but you know, like representation matters, and it's nice whenever you see the impact of that representation in someone. Like seeing all those videos of those like little girls getting super excited about the new Little Mermaid or whatever.
Yes.
In contrast with like angry old men for some reason, and it's like the movie's not for you. Why do you care?
Get over it.
But like, you can't tell me that representation doesn't matter. Look at the emotion in this little kid's eyes when they see someone that looks like them on TV, and they may have, you know, they're not getting. We definitely didn't have that when we were kids. Like,
no.
And I mean, I did. I saw a bunch of people that looked like me, but we didn't have representation for anyone that didn't look like me.
Right.
It's even the default within, like, you're watching something like The Lion King, and although they're animals or whatever, like the assumption is just in your head is that like Simba's, you know, if you were to turn him into a person, realistically he would be a small African boy, but
right.
like in your head it's like, oh, he's an American white
yeah
man.
He's white Jesus.
Yeah. So it's I'm glad that trend is happening that way, and a lot of that pushback too, though, is like I saw the statistics the other day, and I can't remember them, so I'm gonna butcher this. This is not quite right, but like the percentage of people that actually use Twitter is, you know, it's like 20% of the population or something like that, and it's only then it's like 10 or 15% of Twitter users create 90% of the content or what. Like what I'm getting at is like that outrage, while it's loud, it's actually equates to a very small number of actual people.
Right.
So it's
not a majority voice.
No, I don't think the majority of people care what the Little Mermaid looks like.
So, in closing, what is your best pro tip for being a dad and a creative, or even a professional?
Are you asking for like a tip that encompasses both, or like a tip for each?
However you want to do it.
Whatever. I don't know, like what, like for a dad, man, I try really hard to, and it's hard sometimes to not lose patience.
Mm-hmm.
But I try really hard to keep things as calm as possible. So like when Isla's having a hard, like I get down on my knees, I look her in the eyes, I try to have like conversations with her.
Yeah.
Try, like when she's having strong emotions, which they have at that, you know, they don't have the same regulation of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so patience, you need to respect their, like, yeah, you're making the decision because you're the parents, but like you have to respect their emotions and have those conversations with them and try to, like I said, patience. That's the biggest thing I've found out through being a dad, is that like I always need more of it. Even when I think I'm doing a good job, it's like, man, I wish I would have been a little more patient and a little more attentive looking back at stuff. So and to be forgiving to yourself. Like the other thing I've learned as I've become an adult is no one knows what they're doing. And that, you know, we thought of our parents or uncles or grandparents or whatever as like these people that had all the answers when we were 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. And then now as an adult, you realize like they didn't know what they were doing either, and they didn't have any of the answers, and we're all making it up as we go. So you need to be willing to forgive yourself. You're going to make mistakes. You're not going to get through parenthood batting 1,000. So be willing to forgive yourself when you do make those little mistakes. And then from a professional, like, you know, there's that forgiveness there too. Like, don't be too hard on yourself from a professional sense. I know I talked about like imposter syndrome and that like stress, and I have trouble with this. I can't turn off. Like I'm not ever on vacations, on weekend, whatever. I have a hard time not thinking about work in some capacity. but I don't think that's necessarily healthy or good for us.
Yeah.
So I think that I wish I could be better about this, but my tip would be, make sure you have some something to channel your energy into that is for you. And that can just be your family. Like, it doesn't have to be like woodworking or something, but
Right.
yeah. I don't know.
Quality time. No, yeah, that's perfect. And I honestly struggle with the same thing. And that's why I love to ask that, because I struggle with turning off also. And if I didn't have Kate, who doesn't struggle with that, to tell me what to do, my life would suck
Yeah.
a lot more.
When it's hard, even with a job that you love, like
Or it doesn't suck, but it would suck.
Yeah, you're doing something you like. You know what I mean? Even in that situation, it's still just not good to let that dominate all aspects of your life. And that's where I struggle with being attentive. Like, I wish there are times when I catch myself, trying to make sure I'm replying to these emails or doing this stuff, and like Isla's playing on the floor or whatever, and it's like, oh man, it's a Saturday. Like, I can return these emails Monday. No one's gonna care.
Right.
Let me go play with. I should be down there playing with her or doing something like that. And because she's only gonna be 6'1". Like, she's only gonna be
Right.
6'1", and she's only gonna be willing to let me get down there and play with her for a short window of time. Like, that email about something that's not an emergency can wait.
Right. And there's no extra points for it either.
No,
like,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
not gonna
yeah,
get
yeah.
paid more either.
Yeah, exactly. No one's gonna be like, oh well, he emailed me on a Saturday. Wow, we better give him a raise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Do you have any plugs? Anything coming up that you're involved in? I know you're heavily involved with the film festival at Luca.
Yeah. So we there's the Flatline Film Festival that's every September, and so yeah, if you're listening to this and you're wanting to get your film in, you can submit through Film Freeway. We're at Texas Tech Public Media. We're doing so much stuff. I don't even know what to plug.
Sound on Tap is really cool.
Yeah, so which it's a performance show. Kind of, once again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Like you had mentioned at the top of your lungs that y'all did. It's very similar to that. Or Tiny Desk, Austin City Limits. It's just another performance like that, but we're featuring. We're trying to feature emerging artists. So those people that are trying to break through to that next level of stuff. You can go to soundontap.tv to watch any of those. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so we didn't really get to talk about it. And this is probably its own conversation. But the things that Texas Tech Public Media or any local public media station does is very, very important for the community. And I know a lot of people, a lot of kids, especially in less affluent positions in their life, grow up with that. Like, literally, that's their...
Yeah, it's America's preschool. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so I don't want to downplay that at all, but I know that you guys also are funded off of fundraising opportunities.
Yeah. So, like I said, we're the Lubbock and El Paso PBS station, and then the Lubbock and San Angelo NPR stations. They're both, at the end of the day, a service, whether that's... So from our NPR perspective, we provide a window into like classical music and the arts and things like that, but also local journalism, unbiased local journalism that tries to look at things through a more human lens, looking for the humanity in these stories that the other stations are covering or not able to cover. As we all know, local journalism is hurting. And then from the PBS side, there's arts, entertainment, from like music and musical performances or anything like that, but then also educational and informational stuff, from science programming to we're working on a show about media literacy, like a digital series about media literacy and civics literacy and things like that. So
that's really cool.
There's some informational, educational, impact stuff there. And it's all important, and it is donor funded. So if it's something that's important to people, like go into ttupublicmedia.org, and you can learn more about what we're doing and also donate, become a member, all that stuff.
Awesome. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on. There was a ton of thank you for taking a chance to spend an hour with me here. It's been really fun to talk to you and dive a little bit deeper into
Oh yeah, man.
more
Anytime.
Conversation than usual.
Yeah.
It's cool. But
No, I had a blast.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. Real quick, I do want to give a quick shout out to Monomyth Coffee here in Lubbock. They're on Broadway, incredible coffee shop. You can order from them online. If you would like coffee grounds from them or any sweet merch, they have some incredible design work. You can also find that online. So anyways, Jonathan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.